On the Volkswagen stand is undoubtedly their new sports coupe, the Corrado, launched in two versions, the 16-valve version, and what you might call perhaps the straight-up supercharged version. Not a turbocharger driven off the exhaust gases, but a supercharger that sits at the front of the engine, driven off the crankshaft. Its role is to compress the air into the inlet manifold and therefore increase the power without the lag associated with turbocharging. And the irony is they're using a radically new design based, would you believe, on the 1905 patent. Now, Tiff Needell has been trying out the Corrado on a test track.
The G60 will be the first of the Corrados in the UK, and yes, it does go. 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds and onto a top speed of 140 miles per hour. Not bad for a 1.8-litre engine. And if you want to drive it as a performance car, how does it handle? Well, it has power-assisted steering, which is very well weighted and gives a positive feel of the road surface below. The gear linkage is cable-operated, giving a rather notchy change, but nevertheless it performs very well indeed. The driving position has been very well thought out and should suit all shapes and sizes. The dashboard layout is very good indeed, all the instruments easily readable, and the computer information coming from the end of a stalk. Performance-wise, which is what this car really seems to be all about, the supercharger is most impressive. From 1,000 revs right up to the 6,200 rev limit, there's power all the way, unlike the turbocharged engines, which don't produce the power at the lower revs until the turbine picks up. The one criticism of the engine really is the rev limiter, which comes in at 6,200, and really it comes in a bit too violently for my liking. Although you shouldn't really be driving right up in those revs all the time. Handling-wise, the Corrado is classic front-wheel drive, and it's really very, very good indeed. Turn-in is positive. In the middle of the corner, there is that mild understeer as the power is brought in. That's easily eased by a lift of the throttle. So, very stable through the corners, neutral, very stable also, going 140 miles an hour down this disused runway, where it's also a little bit tempting to have a bit of a play with the car, showing the handling to its extremities. Braking equally impressive, disc brakes all around, and just to help you out, there's ABS as well. Looks-wise, the Corrado has a completely new shape, but one can't help but notice the similarity in the overall concept of the Mark I Scirocco. However, the car isn't completely new. It borrows the floor pan and suspension layout from the Golf, and the gearbox instrumentation from the Passat, albeit in a different layout. Inside, it's roomy rather than spacious, with legroom in the back for short journeys only. But for a sports coupe, it's got a surprisingly large boot, with ample room for all this luggage. A quick look under the bonnet, and the 1.8-litre engine fits compactly in, with the G-Lada supercharger nestling here at the front. This pre-production model aside, the G60 arrives here just before Christmas in left-hand drive form only, but is sure to carve a niche in the sports car market. Looks alone ensure that. However, it's good on performance too, quicker than the Mazda RX-7, Toyota Celica and Porsche 944, and costing $19,000 is competitively priced. There will be a cheaper 16-valve version with right-hand drive in the new year, but with fewer creature comforts and no supercharger. The Corrado has all the makings of a winner, marred though by the odd gimmick. Vw say this is to reduce lift, extending its speed and then going down when the car stops to help with parking. But if you look through the back, it doesn't actually make that much difference. And besides, there's a button so that the driver can raise and lower the aerofoil at will. Should make the GTI and XR3i owners green with envy. Mind you, having said that, with sales of the Corrado in the UK limited to 2,000 a year, they're sure to shift.